Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. I have a really quick video for you today on how I created my own pattern papers from some inspiration. So over at the Counterfeit Kit, we are using this kit for our inspiration this month, and I was particularly drawn to that striped paper you see there in the middle, and then also to this butterfly paper, which is a Paige Evans paper. I think the stripes were pink fresh. So let me show you what I did and the color direction I went in. I started with my Vicki Boutin's Mixed Media Foundations paper, but really any smooth cardstock will work for this. And I pulled out two sheets because I'm going to do one butterflies and one stripes. And the Vicki Boutin paper does have perforations, so I trimmed those off really quick. I'm going to go ahead and start with that striped paper, and you will see my head a lot in this video, so forgive me. I have this washi tape that's super thin that I got off of Amazon in a big multi-pack, and I'm going to use that to be the white spaces between my stripes of color. So I'm masking off this paper, and I am using my glass mat here, and if you stretch that washi tape taut, don't pull too hard because it will break, but if you stretch it taut, it will stay in a straight line, and then I just put one end on the right on an inch marker on that glass mat and then press it down on the left, and that will keep a nice straight line. For my color palette, I wanted to use these pattern papers that I had put in my Counterfeit Kit this month, and I want to use that as a starting point, especially the two papers on the right with the florals. Had a color palette that was interesting to me with some soft purples, some kind of dusty yellows, and some corals. So I am testing out the difference between direct inking with the ink pad versus ink blending, and I'm going to end up doing both, but first I'm going to start with ink blending because I thought I wanted that softer look in the beginning, so that's where I started. Now I have ink blending brushes. You don't have to. If you have like sponge dauber kind of tools, you can do those. And just a quick tip, if you decide to use an ink dauber for this or a sponge or something, that does transfer ink a lot more saturated, and if you just put it straight on your paper, you'll get a blob. So you really do have to start off the edge and blend it on to your project. You start off with a lighter pressure and then add more pressure as you go, as that ink starts to soak into the paper and release from your sponge. You'll need more pressure to keep transferring the ink. Okay, back to the project. I am covering the rest of my paper beyond that washi tape with just scratch pieces of paper to prevent my brushes from getting overzealous. And then I wipe down my tape with a tissue to prevent the ink from spreading as I move this tape. And then I do move it to the next stripe down, and that's just to save tape. You could just reuse this tape or use as much as you need to finish the project. Now here on the back side, I am doing a direct to ink technique, and this will behave differently depending on your cardstock. The Vicki Boutin cardstock is really smooth, and I've heard that it has a bit of a coating on it, so that helps prevent harsh lines from a direct to ink. If you have a more traditional paper cardstock, you may get some harder lines than this. And I wanted to show you here that not all inks are created equal either. This is the Tim Holtz Distress ink, and as I move across this, and once I get my head out of the way, on the left-hand side it looks white, but it's not. What's happening is it's very wet and it's shiny from reflecting the light from my studio lights. And so once it's dry here, you can see that it's a perfectly solid color. So your paper matters and your ink formulations matter. For the butterfly paper, I'm just going to do some stamping, and this is really a basic stamping technique, but if you're not a stamper, I wanted to show this to you just in case. Now that was the butterflies that I was inspired by, but I didn't have a nice solid butterfly stamp that I wanted to use, so I'm using this more open stamp with these paler ink colors, which is going to give me a totally different look. So I do already have some butterflies on that paper, which are hard to see in this video, but now with this darker color, what I do is I stamp one image, and then I rotate my stamp some and stamp a second image a couple inches away, and then rotate the stamp again and stamp a third image in a bit of a triangle. And then with those bottom two butterflies, I create another triangle with this third stamp, and then off to the right, another triangle. So basically what you're doing is creating these triangles and rotating your stamp as you go, and that helps give a randomized pattern. And then I go in with the next color, and I will find a space in between the previous stamping to do this whole process again. So 1, and then 2 a couple of inches away, and then rotate, and 3, and that's my first triangle. And then those top 2 butterflies become the starting point for a third one for another triangle. And so I just continue this process, and I'm sure to stamp off the edge of the paper as well, because if your butterflies all stop with wings right next to the edge, it creates a harsh line that your eye can see. And so when you flow them off the edge, that creates more of a flow and random natural feel to stamping. And that is it. I just kept going with all of my colors, filling in gaps here and there. And then I did finish it off at the very end with, I started with my lightest color and then I finished it off with my lightest color, just filling in any weird gaps that might feel left over. So that's it. These were just a few quick tips about creating some of your own pattern paper. I hope you got something useful out of it. I will be back on Wednesday with a layout process video featuring my counterfeit kit, and then I will be back on Friday with my Freebie Friday series. So I do hope you'll subscribe and join me then. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you for being here. I do appreciate your time.